Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you've been well. So here's my house, and probably the title of the video. I think I'm making it something about the grid down house. So in this video, we're talking about what that means, what it means to me, how you can design, build, plan, purchase, modify your home to be more of a grid down capable house. So I designed and physically built this house, completed it about two and a half years ago, and have been living in it ever since. And I have still continued to work on the house and the property to be more self-sufficient. So I talk about some of the build on the channel. Look for some old videos on that. Maybe I'll do an update here soon just on the house itself. But this is more kind of supporting systems of the house in this video. A big chunk of it is what you can see here, solar, and what you can't see, but I'll talk about later, batteries. So I have solar and a battery backup. That is a Grid Down Redoubt 54 kilowatt battery array that powers my entire house. I have 400 amp service to my house, so I designed a system that can handle the whole thing with 10 kilowatts of solar. Maybe I'll add more to that later. But the whole aspect of it, again, I'll dive deeper into that stuff later. The whole aspect of the grid down house, there's a term you probably heard of called off-grid. I got off-grid house, off-grid cabin, off-grid property. And a lot of times those refer to locations that either you can't get power to because there's no electrical infrastructure there, so you need to do your own setup. I can technically flip a switch and be off-grid. I have well, septic, generate my own power. I can be, like, my house is off-grid capable, but I like to think of it more of like grid down capable because I am connected to the grid. I do use natural gas from the grid, but the grid, if that term is unfamiliar to you, the grid is typically in this essence anyway referred to as the electrical grid. So if you're connected to the electrical grid, you rely on the electrical grid to run your house, then you're connected to the grid. So if the grid goes down, whether that's a power outage or a terrorist attack or AI apocalypse, any number of things could cause the grid to go down, then your house can kind of keep running. And that is basically what I shot for here. Connected to the grid when times are good, capable of being grid down when times are bad. So I do have plans to roll a lot of this content into a second channel, which I haven't launched yet, but my wife's gonna be much more involved with that, where I'm just talking homestead stuff. So part of the aspect of a grid down home is self-sufficiency. So here is I actually have kind of two chicken coop and runs. This is a chicken tractor. So I pull this around my property and they kind of enrich the soil, eat bugs and grass. And then my main chicken coop and run is actually attached to that building there. Planted a bunch of raspberry, blueberry, other types of berry bushes here that hopefully will take off one day and provide me more food. And then it is towards the end of the season. We've been eating and picking lots of stuff over the past couple of months, but these are raised garden beds, have several of them, some stuff in pots. And yeah, so the ability to grow food. And then over here is the last little bit of my maybe one day mini orchard. So we got some cold weather trees, cherries and apples and peaches. Those have yet to bear fruit or even flower, honestly. So that may be a failed science experiment, or I'll need to do something creative there. But that is one aspect of long-term grid down outage, is the ability to sustain yourself via some food. What do you have that, Coop? What's that? Nature's corn dog? It's a cattail. Can't actually eat that one. Then we got the main chicken run and coop here. Got a few of these guys currently. They're a little broody. Some eggs down in there. So along with food, even more important than food really is water. So water storage is important, but the ability to procure more water, arguably even more important. So most houses have roofs. Some houses have gutters. So this is actually my shop, and then the chicken run that I added this gutter to, and is actually too much roof for this one gutter. And I have this downspout here, and the downspout currently just goes to, you know, out down the hill, actually eventually down to a little stream I have in the backyard. Now the stream also I could get water from as well if I needed to, but it's nice to let gravity do the work. So a roof with gutters and downspouts, which is what a lot of people have. Hi, June. So downspouts, 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 and then all that water's got to go somewhere. So barrels, rain barrels. I have an assortment of them, not hooked up. And then these you hook onto your gutters and actually transfer the water into the rain barrels. So all of these things are good and important. And like I said, property's kind of a work in progress. I have a well and a septic system. So currently I don't rely on a water supply as I make my own. And with the power that I generate from my roof, I can continue making my own water. So rain collection, water gathering from a stream, those are all secondary for me anyway, but I want to have the ability to do it in case I need to. So I have a handful of the gutter collection things and a bunch of miscellaneous rain barrels. I'm walking over to the junk corner of my property over here where I have more water collection devices. These are called IBC totes. So in the event I really need to collect and store a fair bit of water, I do have the ability to do so. So I could do a 20-part series on all the things to look for in, you know, your apocalypse retreat or your grid down house. This is not my bug out location. I kind of do have one of those. I don't talk about it. I probably never will talk about it. But this is my house that I built to bug in, but also just live a good life with the family. There are no downsides to being more self-sufficient. But some other quick points: good to be off the beaten path a little bit. Good to have some like-minded neighbors. Good to be at least a little bit rural, in addition to all those other resources that I talked about. Good to have a variety of vehicles that you can recharge with the power that you generate. So we got food, water, shelter naturally because of the house. Then part of shelter is being able to handle the weather swings. I live in Colorado, so my house doesn't really get too hot. I do have AC, but I only use it a few times a year, if I'm being honest. The other thing is heat. So if you didn't know, those are logs. There's my plow truck there. Wood, when you burn it, produces heat, but you need two things for that to handle. You need wood to burn, well, and a way to burn it that produces heat. So wood stove, fireplace, things like that. And then ideally, the ability to procure more wood for more heat. So the tools to do that, but also the area to do that. I have a bunch of trees that I took down when I built the house. So those trees are just chilling, waiting to be processed. And then I process them, and then I can burn them for heat. I also designed my house to have passive solar heat, but I still do have a bunch of wood that I need to finish processing for the season. And then I really need to expand my firewood storage. And then so all that wood to feed, I actually just have one single big wood burning stove here. This is on the lower level, central to the house. And I have a fan up there and a couple other fans that really help move the air around. Now I do have forced air, I have central air, and I have a natural gas furnace that I will use typically for heating the home when I need it. So this is more of an emergency or a secondary heat source. I do like it. It's fun to use. When I have time, I do it. I'll probably use more of it this year since I have a bunch of wood. But I have tested it. We had a few days that were basically below freezing, but a few days that dropped below zero and never got above freezing. And just to test, you always got to test out your systems. Just to test, I actually kept the house heated on nothing but this stove. So the entire house, just this wood stove, nothing else. I was able to keep the temp of the house above 70 the whole time. So success. So one aspect of passive solar is this is all south facing here. And I have a bunch of big windows. This is actually, it broke, but this is this temporary sunshade that I put up in the in-between season to actually block the sun a little more. I have a 4-foot overhang here, but I block the sun a little more from getting in. But once it's cold, I like that sun coming in, so I take that off, and the sun heats my house a ton. That paired with a bunch of insulation means that I don't really need to heat the house much in the winter, at least when it's sunny out. So this room is a bit of a wreck right now, so I'm not gonna film much more than you see here, and then I'll go out on the deck and talk more. This is the core of really everything, the Grid Down Redoubt system. So these are the inverter chargers, these are all of the batteries. These things work together with all of my main panels over here. So this is 400 amp service, two 200 amp panels, a bunch of stuff to distribute the power, the grid down EMP shields on several of the components, to include EMP protection on my solar array, the inverters, the batteries, and my whole house electrical system. So the Grid Down Redoubt, the core, the central, the brain, or maybe even the heart of my kind of grid down house system is coincidentally the Grid Down Redoubt. Now I have built systems into place where like water collection, a lot of other stuff is not dependent on electricity, but electricity will make things so much easier. So when I was designing the house, when I was designing my life, when I was planning how to survive the end of the world, you can do two things. You could go back to living like the Amish, right? Or no technology, no electricity. I don't know much about the Amish. I think they do use some of that stuff now. But that, or embrace life with all the modern amenities and use electricity to benefit me. With the Grid Down Redoubt, that system it kind of benefits my life, especially with the solar panels. Now it's cutting my electricity bill. Since I am connected to the grid, there is the service charge and everything. So I don't have a $0 energy bill because my electrical grid, I can't get paid, like I can't make any money from it. Basically, I can accumulate credits that roll over monthly and then reset at the end of the year. So basically, my solar panels aren't making me any money, and they're not even putting my energy bill to zero because I still am having to pay service fees. But through the summer anyway, I am generating electricity, and I am storing that electrical use to use when I won't be generating enough electricity through the winter. So I'm overproducing through the summer, and then I'll be underproducing through the winter. And I should come out probably, this is where I talked about earlier, I probably should go a little bigger with the solar system. Now I have a Tesla that I'm charging. I live inefficiently. We have TVs on, we have lights on, I have a bunch of smart devices in the home. My house never dips below like 1,000 watts of constant usage. Like my house, standing still, lights off, not doing anything, is using like 1,000 watts. So I'm pretty much a wildly inefficient house. So I could do stuff to improve that, but I don't feel really compelled to necessarily. So anyway, that all to say, I could probably go for more solar panels. With EV usage and inefficiency, I use a lot of energy. So there are areas where I don't use a ton of electricity, like air conditioning, because of the design of my house. And where I live, largely where I live, but somewhat the design of the house, I don't really need to use the air conditioner. Now I have it, and we do use it sometimes when it's just like hot and I didn't cool the house down by opening the windows the night before or whatever. But so there are areas where I am super efficient, and the house as a whole is super efficient, but my family, my lifestyle, what we've decided to do isn't wildly efficient. So my 6 month or so feedback is I probably should have gone with more solar panels. The good news is I have more room on my roof, and my system is capable of much more solar input. But I also might want to fool around. I kind of left some area for future, like tying in with wind energy, or if there's just new technologies coming out that were better or different than solar. I kind of wanted to leave some space open for them. So anyway, I should probably add more solar, but I haven't. The 54 kilowatts of batteries. So now the system is comprised of two things: solar panels and batteries. You want to size them kind of appropriately to each other, but also to your energy usage. So I have a 54 kilowatt array. It's the average sized kind of battery pack, you can say. So I have 4 essentially of the Lion Sanctuary walls, but you could have 5, 6, 7. I don't know how many you can have, probably 20 of them. Or you could just have 1. And then I have 4 inverters. The typical pairing with the 54 kilowatt battery is 2 inverters. So I have 4 because, again, my house is 400 amp usage. So 400 amp, a max of 400 amp. I have 400 amp service to my house. A lot of houses have 200 amp service. So I have a lot of electrical devices. Part of this was I want to continue my life if the power goes out. So instead of using a lot of natural gas for things, I do have some natural gas stuff like my furnace. I have 2 hot water heaters. One is electric, one is natural gas, so I could use one or the other. In normal times, I use both. I kind of split the house up, but I could power the whole house off of one or the other by changing a couple valves. So I have an electric water heater. I have an electric dryer. I have air conditioner, obviously. I have a lot of electronic stuff where I could have gone for gas. I went for electric. So natural gas is a great option. A lot of people have natural gas generators like Generacs or something, and that's a popular option for people that aren't really preppers. You spend 10, 20 grand getting a natural gas whole house backup generator installed, and you are tied to natural gas or propane, but then you need a tank, you need to fill the tank. For a long-term grid outage, you will have no natural gas and you will consume all of your propane. What you won't consume, unless it's like the Matrix and the AI whatever makes the storms that block the sun because they didn't want solar power in the Matrix movies. Tangent. What you won't lose is sunlight. So rather than spending 10, 20 grand on a natural gas generator, which would be good for just a normal, 24, 48 hour outage where natural gas is still flowing, I opted to spend that money instead on solar and battery, where if we lost power for the rest of our lives, I would still be generating it for a long time with the lithium phosphate batteries that have a ton of life cycles, and solar panels, which are proven now to last well beyond 25 years. The system I have has a 25-year warranty, I believe, maybe 10-year on some components, but I leave it to 25-year warranty, USA-made panels. So that system will continue going indefinitely. So it will help me in my normal outages, and it will help me in long-term grid down scenarios. So another advantage of the Grid Down Redoubt system specifically is the EMP shielding that the whole system comes with. So EMP shields I've talked about. I put them on my vehicles. We're not talking about EMP shields on vehicles, though I may do a grid down vehicle talk. I may do a grid down vehicle video where it will be tied into a lot of electrical systems, but also EMP proofedness. So one thing, the one area that I would be susceptible, like a natural or like a disaster, whether that's a CME or an EMP, a disaster scenario where the grid goes down, right? So the grid goes down long term. This could happen by what I'm told through my connections and my research is that the most likely scenario is a grid attack. So a cyber attack on the grid, which it's kind of public knowledge. The head of the FBI has made speeches about it. We're greatly outnumbered in cybersecurity. There are several countries that have the ability to turn the entire grid off, or at least like 90% of the grid, remotely. Now, if they had boots on the ground, they could do it all. And they do have boots on the ground. Don't be fooled. But remotely, via cyber attacks, they can shut down our whole grid, which is basically overloading transformers until they essentially melt down, blow up, whatever. These transformers are not made in the US, and they have like an 18 to 24 month lead time normally, when we just need like one of them and the times are good. If a bunch of them went out and there was attacks and chaos, you can imagine it'd take even longer to get those repaired. So if we did have a cyber attack on the grid, we could pretty much be sure that we'd be without power for at least 2 years, potentially more. So in that scenario, I won't be without power. I will be having hot showers. I'll be doing laundry in my washer and dryer, using the dishwasher. I'll be reading books I'll be watching movies on the projector. That'll be great. So the other susceptible area for losing power long-term would be an EMP or a CME, a corona mass ejection from the sun, essentially a big sun flare that wipes out a bunch of stuff. So in the event of an EMP or a CME, I am also protected because I have EMP protection, which protects against EMPs, CMEs, and lightning strikes as well. So in the event we don't have a cyber attack on our infrastructure and we are EMP'd, I will still be taking hot showers and watching movies in the basement, depending on what of my devices handle EMPs. Now, the claims that they make with the grid down system and EMP shields is that devices that are plugged into the outlets also gain protection from the protection built into the EMP shield. So, yeah, theoretically, my projector will still work. My TVs will still work. That would be cool. It gets very complicated. I've dug into it a lot myself. I'm not a technical wizard on it, but I've called customer service. I've done research. I have people that I know that are well connected that know way more about EMPs than me, and they all have EMP shields on their devices as well. So there's a lot of naysayers out there, which I get. Like, the school of thought is we need everything in a Faraday bag, but people that are tip of the spear when it comes to EMP research and protection that have no affiliation with EMP shield, but people that I know personally have EMP shields on all the devices they can, their radios, their vehicles, their houses. So people that I trust more than I trust myself trust EMP shields that have no affiliation with EMP shields. So that is a testament to all of that. I am somewhat affiliated with EMP Shield. I have a coupon code with them, and I'm somewhat affiliated with Grid Down as well. I have a coupon code with them. I'll put both of those in the video description below. But people that have no affiliation, that know way more, also trust it. But if you have questions, call their customer service hotline. They'll answer all your questions about it. So basically, I'm protected from a normal power outage from like a storm or a blizzard or whatever. I'm protected against national grid down scenario due to cyber attack, and I'm protected from national or localized grid down scenarios coming from EMP or solar flares. So I feel pretty good about that. Again, contingencies in case I do lose power, but not losing power is clutch. So why do I care so much why do I care so much about having power? Like, shouldn't I have a bunch of just hand tools, and shouldn't I just boil water with sticks and fire? Yeah, I have all of the skills, and I have all of the products and the knowledge to do that, but I would much rather boil water on an induction cooktop. I would much rather go kill a deer in the backyard and throw it in my chest freezer than cover it in salt or do any other types of, food storage option, longer term food storage options that I need. I want to be able to run my dehydrator. I want to be able to run my freeze dryer. I want to be able to run my flour mill. I want to be able to do all this stuff, all of which is made easier with power. So I don't know. It's hard to stress the importance of power enough, but I have had people say, like, shouldn't you just not rely on power? Isn't that the easiest option? That's the most difficult option, to not rely on power. It is the cheapest option, though, but I would much rather have my powered option and then my fallback option if I don't have power. So I have a couple electric grain mills, and then I have a hand grinding grain mill. I have chainsaws, but I also have hand saws. I have power drills and drivers, but I also have manual versions of those. I have motorcycles and e-bikes, but I also have pedal bicycles. So I try to have both, but everything is made easier through power. Power also is great for transportation. Like I said, I have an electric car. I have an electric golf cart. I have an electric dirt bikes. I have one wheels. I have e-bikes. I have all kinds of stuff that I will use for transportation in a grid down scenario, whether that's running supplies, getting water, getting resources, going on scouting missions or whatever. I now have the ability to continue operating my Suron indefinitely off of my roof, which is really, really cool. So with power, I can transport, I can travel, I can use my well, I can use my septic, I can use my refrigerators, I can use all the devices, I can charge lights, I can run lights, I can really do, like, my light outside of losing the internet, but internet in a box. I can continue using internet in a box. Essentially, all the important parts of the internet downloaded on a local device. Maybe I'll make a video of it in the future. I can use other hard drive resources that I have. This is one thing I need to do, buy a DVD collection for entertainment and education, and have that on tap for when the internet is no longer with us. Gaming devices, like the end of the world, there will be a lot of hard work, but I want to be able to relax in the evenings and have movie nights, and I'll be able to do that. So all that stuff is really cool. And I want to get to it in this video, but it'll take so long. I'm going to just make a separate dedicated video about it. Just kind of an updated preparedness scenario video where I talk about all of the threats that I'm considering threats in 2025. So that video is coming up, but all that to say that it's never a better time to get your preps in order. Food, water, shelter, and like I talked a lot about in this video, obviously, power. So if you're looking for a system, there's still tax incentives, tax rebates you can get through the end of 2025. I believe the system might even be on sale now, and I have another coupon code. I'll either put it on screen or I'll put it down in the video description below. If you are interested, I don't have any affiliations with any other big, beefy home backup systems that are just like modular and EMP proof. So Grid Down Redoubt is probably the best way to go, and I've had nothing but good things. Good experiences in my personal life. You can monitor it from the app so you can see how much power is going in. I always nerd out about it. So my system through the summer, my 10 kilowatt array I think I peaked at 70 kilowatts of power generation in the summer. Now we're on the decline now, so I'm getting less and less and less. But in the peak, I was generating 70 kilowatt hours in a 24-hour period. And the average consumption that my house uses, again, not a low consumption house by any means, even though it's a super efficient home at the same time, is almost 30. So 20 to 30 is kind of my average day of kilowatt usage, which is above the average household. So it's weird. Again, I talked about it earlier. My house is super energy efficient, but I do not live in a super energy efficient way. So yeah, trying to think if I missed anything. If you have any questions, let me know down below. I'll probably dive deep. This is kind of the deeper dive in the grid down house electrical system and considerations. And then I'll probably dive into some of the other grid down home considerations as well. Though again, I probably will start pushing that over to the second channel that I'm planning to spin up soon, which is more self-sufficiency homestead related. But yeah, cool. All right, guys. Well, I am stoked to be prepared for the upcoming apocalypse that's probably coming in 2027. So you guys should probably take some steps and get yourself squared away. Stay safe out there. And until next time, take care.